Ladies and gentlemen, this is Joe's Classic Video Games back with another cool watch video for you today. Normally we do videos on arcade games, pinball machines, and jukeboxes. So if you're only interested in those, we will see you back Tuesday with an arcade game, jukebox, or pinball video. I believe this Tuesday, actually, we're doing our last video on the Student Prince pinball machine. So we'll see you then. But on Sundays lately, I've been doing what I call amateur repair time, where we work on some of my other collectibles that I'm interested in, old radios, old clocks, things like that. So I thought today I would do one on some watches. I went to a auction, or an online auction, earlier this week and picked up some watches. Now, normally I do not buy watches, and I'll show you why here in a little bit. But I couldn't resist this. Oh, I think I've got my flash on. Turn that off. I couldn't resist this because these were just selling so cheap. It's just the way time is going. It's going to break all of our necks. Time is moving so fast. So I paid $2.50 for this stuff. I think actually these I paid $5 for, but most of these I paid $2.50 for. These are a couple old Bulova wristwatches. Bulova self-winding wristwatch. And I believe that in the auction they said this one didn't work and this one did, or, you know, to the best of their, the best that they could tell. And they started the bid out at nothing, and they went for like $5. We have gotten to the point where that's all these are worth. And it's such a shame because these are so cool, but nobody needs a watch anymore, you know? Some people will still mess with watches like a brand new one. I'm shaking it. I don't have a winder. Let's see if it does anything after you shake it a little bit. Doesn't seem to. Nothing. So this Bulova here is not working. Maybe I can fix it. Probably not in this video though, so don't get too excited. Bulova self-winding. That's a nice looking little watch. Isn't that worth a couple bucks? I mean, but it's just to the point where nobody wears a watch anymore because there's really not much reason to. Okay, and then it said that this one seemed to work. Bulova Automatic. Bulova was such a cool company. They're still in business. They never went out of business, actually. I mean, they got sold a couple times, but they never went out of business. Oh, and that started it. You know, after you wind it, you need a little bit of a wrap to get her going. Don't go crazy, though. What a beautiful old watch. When's this from? The 50s, probably? So let me tell you the watch story, why that I'm interested in this kind of stuff. Like I said, normally I don't buy them because you'll just end up with thousands of watches, and I already have a bunch of watches. My dad was way into this stuff, but he grew up in a different time. You know, I was born in 78. He was born in 45. And he loved watches, probably because whenever he was a kid, his dad had one or something, you know. So I have a similar affection for watches because my dad liked them so much. Boy, that thing is moving. Is it going too fast? Let me see if I'll time it real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It stopped. Maybe it wasn't wound enough. Whenever we were kids, from the earliest I can remember, we used to go to the flea market. I mean, even as a baby, I can remember, let me think, when's the earliest I can remember going to the flea market? We used to live in California, and I can distinctly remember going to the flea market when I was like 4 or 5 years old with Donnie. Joey wasn't born yet. And we would go to the flea market, and my dad would sell watches at the flea market. So we'd go and we'd help him set up. And he had all of these little boxes that they came in, these little display boxes, and he'd get them out and he'd set them up, and he'd have, you know, 5 of them, and then there'd be 10 of them across the table or even more. And it was at an all Hispanic flea market so nobody could speak English except us. And all of the watches that he sold at that flea market, at least, whenever we were that young, were brand new. So that'd be Seikos and Citizen and stuff like that. But the whole time I was a kid, he would always tell me all these stories about when he grew up, you know, and like every kid, this is how their dad is, you know. So he'd tell me all about it growing up in West Virginia, which is where our family was from. And so the whole time I'm a kid, he's telling me about, you know, going to the movie theater down on West Washington Street and how his high school was. Is it hitting something? I think it's just stopping. He would always tell me all these stories. So all of the stories that he told me were about old things, you know, things that happened in the 60s or the 50s, you know, whenever he was a little kid. And I just thought these were the coolest stories I ever heard in my life. And then a crazy thing happened. We moved from California back to West Virginia. Yeah, this one's definitely got issues. All right, so those two aren't going to work easily. Let's look at the next ones. So we moved back to West Virginia. I'm going to save that one. That's one of my favorites. We moved back to West Virginia, and I got to see all of the things he was always telling me about. There was the movie theater he was talking about. There was the house that he was talking about that this happened in. And then I got to meet my granddad and all of this, you know. And so as a kid, this was incredible, you know, because it was like all of the stories that he was telling me about the good old days. Here they were right in front of us. Look, you mean like, so he fell and he cut his wrist one time on a piece of glass, and he showed me like exactly where it happened. No, I was right there. I was playing. Look, remember I told you I was playing beside my grandma's house? Look, there's her house. I was on the hill right there when it happened. You know, and as a kid, this was just mind blowing. So part of all of that was all of the old stuff, like the you know, like an old watch. This watch saw a different life than I did, you know. So to me, it's just fascinating. So the arcade games, the jukeboxes, the pinball machines, all of that I like because it's old stuff that has seen a lot, and with a little help is still working. I don't know, there's something about that just blows my mind. So that's why I like old radios, old clocks, old watches, old pinball machines. I got so many hobbies, it's unbelievable. Old cars, I've got old cars, right? Look at this beautiful thing. I bought this for $2.50. It's a 17 jewel Whatham. Look at the freaking band on it. Just this cool old band, you know, probably from the 50s. Looks like a 50s style to me. But, you know, it's missing the little pin. I wonder if I know anywhere where I can find a pin. Joey knows. Look at that old watch. What a cool old watch, and nobody else wants to pay more than $2.50 for that. What the hell is the world coming to? So I don't know if this one's an automatic. We might have to wind it. Let's see if we can wind it a little bit. Or let's see if it says it's an automatic. No, I don't think it's an automatic. We'll have to wind it, see if it does anything. Let me wind it real quick. She started up. I don't know how well she'll run. She really needs somebody probably to clean her. What a beautiful watch. I mean, good Lord. That's just an awesome watch. You'd think something that cool would, like, you know, hipsters would want it or something. Maybe they do and they just didn't see that option. But wow. Wow. So we moved back to West Virginia. And I'm very young. Donnie's very young. Joey is born. He's very young. You know, we were young. He was young when he was born. Look, it's a Timex that somebody has cut the straps off of. Well, you think this one has a story or something? Maybe they cut this off somebody's arm. Boy, it's filthy. I wonder if that'll clean up or if it needs a new crystal. I wonder where I could find new crystals. So when we go back to West Virginia, we start going to the flea market and all of that. And of course, he's all into everything old like we are now. I think this one has taken a ticking. This one's taken a licking, and I don't know if it's going to keep ticking. And one thing about, so it's Charleston, West Virginia. One thing about West Virginia is old. Like the buildings are old, the people are old. Yeah, Timex definitely needs some work. Nice little watch. I can see why that one went for $250. And so we start going to the flea market in West Virginia. And so he's selling stuff there, but he does something different. Because to be honest, and this doesn't mean anything, don't take this any way, there weren't any Hispanic flea markets in West Virginia. It was a different clientele, basically. So the people there, they weren't necessarily looking for a brand new watch. They liked the old watches. So he would buy old watches and sell them at the flea market there. And he would sell other things like just flea market stuff, you know. So he might have what for a while we sold those tapestries that hang on the wall that have the dogs playing poker and stuff like that, right? Yeah, this one's already wound up, so it's probably overwound. Well, I don't know. A Hellbros. Another beautiful watch. All of these I'm sure need cleaned or they'll never work right. It was one of those things where I was going to the auction to pick up a couple things anyway. And I saw all these watches on there going for nothing. And I thought, wow, I can't believe nobody wants those. So I'm going to add them to the collection. I'm going to show you a little bit more of the collection here in a minute. Boy, they don't like getting to that 39 seconds past the hour. Isn't that where the other one's stopping? No, it's stopping at 43. No, it was this one. You know, you probably shouldn't run them if they're dirty. Let's look at this one. And so our stepmom would take us to the thrift store every day, and we could get a toy if it was cheap enough. So like I would get, you know, you go in these old thrift stores and everything in there is ancient, and it's in this old building, and it's just all the old stuff, you know. And so this was going on in the 80s. So all of the stuff that we were getting at the thrift store was from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, usually not even from the 70s. That was too new, you know. And so I would get old records and things like that because that's what was at the thrift store. And I like music. So if I got an old record at the thrift store, it would be some old song. So, you know, my whole life, I've loved old things kind of because I think, and I've thought about this a lot, I think it's because of the contrast of I was young in California and my dad kept telling me about all this stuff that happened in West Virginia. And he was a really good storyteller. And then we moved back to West Virginia. So there was like this dink, dink, like this short circuit in me at some point that made me really like old crap, right? Because of that. I think that's what it was. So I really have an affinity for this stuff. I can't even read this one. Elgin. I can't tell if that's a screwed up crystal or if I guess it's the face. There's mold or something on the face. That's not really great. Look like it might have that radioactive stuff on it too. Let's see if it'll wind. I don't remember what that means when they're doing that. Listen, it's got that sound. That's not an automatic. Oh, yeah, it is. Self-winding. Okay. Let's give it a little shake, see if this one will do anything. This is probably, it was at an auction, so it's probably somebody's little problem child's that didn't work right. And so they decided to sell them at the auction. They'll run a little bit, won't they? I would imagine if they'll run a bit and stop, that probably means that they need cleaned. What in the world? They stop at the same spot. What the? It would be crazy if they all had the same time on them too. So we grew up at the flea market, and then when Joey came along, he grew up at the flea market. So that's why, you know, the arcade games and stuff. We were at the arcade one day, and they had an old one in the back that was for sale, an arcade game that was for sale, a couple of them. And it was like $80, and we'd saved up money at the flea market. And so Joey and me, Donnie wasn't there that day, we decided we wanted to buy this arcade game. It was $80, and we had $80. And so we called our dad, and he said, we asked him, hey, what do you think? Can we buy this arcade game? And he said, well, yeah, I guess you could do that. Because we had a den set up with a pool table in it. And so our dad showed up in our van, and we took the arcade game and laid it down in the van and took it home and plugged it in, and it still worked. And that's how we got into arcade games. So it's the same thing. We just like old stuff. This one I have never heard of before. It's a Vantage. It looks old though. So that's good. Right? So let me see if it'll wind. Oh yeah, this one feels like a regular winder. So eventually we moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. And of course, we're growing older, but we're still going to the flea market all the time. So my dad is, you know, selling at the local flea market again, and he's selling old shoes, old watches, all that kind of stuff, right? And so our whole time growing up, this was kind of what we experienced. And so these watches, of course, remind me of him, and, you know, all of our family's always been into this kind of stuff. Let's see if it gets past 40 after. Is it going to make it? I bet you didn't know you were going to be watching a video of a secondhand sweeping. Yeah, that one seems to be running actually the best of any of them so far. Okay, and then this one I really like because it's even older. The guy that was selling them on the auction, he's probably like, yeah, some sucker gave me $250 for all kinds of watches. Look at this thing. What in the world? This is a Gruen. What? I mean, is that 30s or 40s maybe? Look at the crystal. Look at that. They had the audacity to make the crystal like that. Man, that's cool. Wow. Man, it's in pretty good shape, right? See the little second hand there? Let me try winding it up. She took right off. See the second hand? Pretty cool. When I was a kid, I used to wear a watch all the time. This is before cell phones and even pagers and stuff. And so on my hand, I always had a little spot on my hand. I don't know if you guys remember that. I don't know if the ladies had the same problem, but you would get a little spot on your hand that was bare because it was where the winding stem would hit your hand when you moved around. So the watch would be on your wrist, and as you moved around, your hand would hit that thing, and it would wear a little spot on your hand all the time. Just little stuff that has gone now, right? What a cool freaking watch. All right, so what do you think? Let's leave your comments below. Let me know what you think about how I did. Like I said, I think these were $250 each, and then the rest of them were, so these two came together, but the rest of them were $250. So $20 for all of that. But they're probably not worth much more than that. I mean, the Gruen might be if you got it really nice. So my dad, he would try to fix these things, and he was never any good at fixing them. You know, he's been gone a long time. He passed away 22 years ago. But he was never really any good at fixing them. He was trying to learn though, right? So he would usually just dunk them in lighter fluid, trying to clean them. But a lot of times if he did that, the he would always complain that the hairspring, after it got lighter fluid on it, would make the thing run too fast. I remember him telling me that, and he couldn't figure out what was going on. He'd say, I've seen people say that you could clean them like that, but if you do that, they just start going crazy and they just run too fast. They won't regulate time right. So he never quite figured that out, but he fixed a lot of them. So, when he passed away, we still had all of his stuff. And so we had his desk, for instance, and his desk was full of watch stuff. So pieces of watches like this that are kind of working, you know, kind of could be fixed if you took the trouble to mess with them. Crystals, tons of the little spring bars. And at the flea market, when we were little, teenagers or younger, people would come up and they'd have a watch like this, and they'd have it in their pocket because the spring bar broke, and, you know, we'd put a new spring bar on it for $1 or something. And so Joey in particular did a lot of that. So they'd bring up their watch, and Joey would get it and find the right bar and clip it in place, and he really liked that. He thought that was fun, you know. And so we dealt with this crap all the time, right? So I figured I'd just show you some of that, just to show you that we come by our love of old things honest, right? So I got something very special I want to show you. Check this out. When we would go to the flea market, we usually had tables inside. Like we had a booth like over in the corner with a bunch of tables. And so we'd have all kinds of stuff set up. So whenever we left on the weekends, we'd leave a lot of the stuff there. So we'd leave like all the shoes and stuff, because basically you're thinking, oh, somebody steals something. I mean, they're probably not going to steal shoes. So you'd leave all the crap that really, you don't really care if they steal it or not, but you take all the good stuff home. So this is one of the trays that we used to, and I've got others, but this is one of the trays that we used to set out on the table whenever we would put out our stuff. And so this particular one is full of all the little watches that my dad would try to sell at the flea market. So we've got another Elgin automatic. All right. Now it's been sitting in this for 22 years, exactly how he left it. Right? Pretty cool. And then he would always have a couple of these little ladies ones. These things are completely tragic to me. These are so cool. I mean, they really made like really cool designs on these little ladies watches. But the thing is, and I know I'm generalizing, but in general, a lot of ladies, they don't really care to wear an old watch, you know. It's not really fashionable to wear something that far out of date, you know. I mean, this is like from the 30s or the 40s, you know. But a lot of times they still work. So these are like the saddest of all the watches, is the little ladies watches from back in the day that nobody wants to wear anymore. This is, Bull of a Caravel. Very cool. And so he would get these and he'd put new bands on them if they needed it, or a lot of times they would just work. Bulova, $30. And so if you look up here, these are little tags that he had made. That's his handwriting, where he was pricing them, and he would just lay them out. Or I think that's his handwriting. That might be Joey's, but I think it's his. There's an L missing. One of them, Joey or my dad, left the L out. Omega, Gruen. This may be Joey's handwriting, actually. Joey could let us know. Westfield, Watham, a Kimberly, and a Hellbros. Yeah, this may be Joey's. I don't know. There's another little ladies' watch. Cool Elgin. So I've already got a whole bunch of these. I didn't really need to buy any more, but you know, it just happened to strike me when I saw them in that auction. I probably ought to buy this. Look at this one, Hellbros. When I showed Joey that Hellbros that I bought, he said, "Yeah, Dad used to love them things," but I don't remember even hearing of them. So this is the one I just got. And there's my dad's, or one of his. Like I said, we got a whole bunch more. This is just one little tray. Elgin. A Gruen. A Benrus. You don't see those anymore. Did we look at that one? Is that a Westcott? There's a pretty old one. Another Benrus. A Watham. An Elgin. Boy, it's really stylish there, isn't it? Bull of a Caravel again. Watham. Nice, beautiful Bulova with the brown face. So that was our experience at the flea market. So after he passed away, we Joey and I decided to go back up there. So we started going to the flea market again, and I don't remember if we sold any of these watches. I think we left most of them at home, but some of the newer ones we would go sell, just because we were trying to clean up a little bit, and I got a job working at an arcade company, going around collecting out of machines. Now, the reason I got the job was because whenever I put in my application, I told them, hey, by the way, we own a couple arcade games, because we had bought the one at the arcade whenever we were kids, right? So we still had it, and we'd picked up another one or two along the way. And so whenever the guy read that, he thought, oh, this guy's perfect for this, right? So they hired me, and I started working for the arcade game company. Well, we started going to auctions for the arcade games, and there was one today. That's why I was thinking about this. We started going to auctions for the arcade games and bought a couple more, and then started selling them at the flea market, because we had a booth, and we would just get them working, wheel them in, put them in the booth in the flea market, and sell them at the flea market. So eventually, the guy that ran the flea market started kind of being a little bit of a jerk. He didn't like us for some reason. And the crazy thing is, we'd been there longer than anybody else. Joey'd been going there since he was a baby, literally, since he was a baby. He's sitting in there replacing the little spring bars and people's old watches and crap when he's like freaking 8, But, whatever. So they start getting, kind of idiotic. And so we come up with this idea. Hey, you know what? We could open up a store and do this during the week. We could sell, because Joey was selling video games at the flea market. We could sell video games, and we could sell these arcade games, right? And so I was working for the arcade game company, and I thought, well, I'll keep working for them, and we'll see if we can get it going. And we got our finances in order, and we weren't in any debt, and we had been smart with our money. And so we rented a little building, and it worked out pretty good. And perseverance pays off. So that's kind of the story of how we got started. And by the way, the flea market is going, the flea market that we went to all that time here locally is going out of business at the end of the month, because nobody in the family really wants to run it, they said. So whatever. I don't wish anybody any ill will. God bless them. I hope everything works out. The property's worth probably $20 million, so I don't think they're in any kind of trouble or anything. But I was just thinking about all that. We went to a arcade auction today and bought all kinds of stuff and had a good time, and it was reminding me of some of the older stuff. And I picked up these watches earlier this week, and it was reminding me of that too. So, all right, so I've let them sit here for a few minutes. The first Bulova isn't doing anything. The second Bulova isn't doing anything. This Elgin is making a run for it. It likes it. Look at my Watham. Tick tock, tick tock. Isn't that the one that stopped at like 40 after? You think it's grinding them gears? Boy, I'll bet some of the horologists are going to hate this video. Wait till they figure out that I opened up the... Never mind. The Timex is dead to the world. The Hellbros needs some hip. The Vantage is running great. That might be the best one so far. And then the Gruen is just killing it. This Gruen is nice, man. That thing's cool. I might have to start wearing that thing. You know, you can't really tell if they work right until you wear them a little bit. So this is his old crystal press that's been sitting around forever. If you haven't ever seen these, basically you turn this and it will grab the crystal, depending on what size it is. All right. You gotta have that. And I found some of the spring clips. I was going to go ahead and fix this one, but the case is messed up. I'm going to have to do a case swap. That sucks. The reason that the pin broke is because the end of the little dog there, or whatever they call it, broke off. And this one we can fix, but it's not running great. It keeps stopping at the same spot, which tells me that something in there's really dirty. Well, there you go, folks. Look at some old watches. It was story time a little bit. I hope you didn't mind. I told you at the beginning it was going to have nothing to do with arcade games, pinball machines, or jukeboxes. But this is just some of the stuff that I like tinkering with. So leave your comments below. I know some of you watch guys. And by the way, this is why it gets me so worked up whenever people they leave stupid comments in videos. People blow my mind sometimes. Take some of my Diet Mountain Dew here and get me all worked up. It drives me nuts when I see people go, that Waltham, that's not the gold one, you know. Bull crap. That's a cool watch. I hate it whenever people nothing can change what this watch is. You know what I mean? This was made at some point. I hate to get all meta on you, but this was made at some point. It is what it is. Why run it down? I don't understand it. People do it with radios and crap too. Well, you know, those Atwater Kents, they're over designed. No. like who gives a damn? It is what it is. It's an old radio. It's still here. It's cool. Like this Vantage. That thing's probably not worth much. But the damn thing's working, ain't it? So, you know, I don't understand people sometimes. So I get that on my pinball videos all the time. People talking crap about the pinball machine. I don't even know what their brain is thinking. It's like they can't see the freaking forest for all the trees. I'll have a pinball machine that was made in 1960, and they'll complain about some aspect of how it was made. Well, what the dude that designed it's dead. You know, I mean, either you deal with it or you throw the thing in the damn trash, and we're not throwing it in the trash, but people, that's not going to happen. So anyway, so I just love old stuff. Hope you didn't mind me showing you some of these watches. I think they're really cool. Hopefully one of these days I'll get good at repairing them too. One of the reasons that I mess with the clocks is because they're bigger. So I'm hoping that if I get good at fixing the clocks, then I can get good at fixing the watches, which are much smaller. You know, one thing about the watches is they're much more compact, but everything's done to tighter tolerances too. So, like if you take the back off a watch, all the stuff is in place. I mean, and a lot of them are like 17 joules, so they don't have as much wear, hopefully. And then also, since it was a fashion thing, a lot of times people would wear a watch for a little while and then lay it down and wear another watch, or they'd get a watch for Christmas, they'd start wearing it. So the watches might only run a couple years and then sit in a drawer somewhere, you know. A clock, on the other hand, a lot of times, if it's working, the thing just runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs until it just eats itself to death. So a lot of times you can get watches that are actually still in pretty good shape because they didn't get used a lot. But there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. We will see you Tuesday. We're going to finish up our Student Prince pinball machine. Boy, that thing's been a doozy. I hope you liked the paint job. Some of you did, some of you didn't. That's all right. But we'll see you back Tuesday. This has been Amateur Repair Time.